Hello, Cedar Crest Chargers. Welcome back. This is Mr. Wallace, and this is going to be a new concept, quadratic functions. And really, this first lesson is just understanding the parts of the graph of a quadratic function. What is a quadratic function? Well, here's an example right here. A linear function, right, would be like y equals 2x, right? 2 times x, 3 times x, 2x plus 5. But this is quadratic, and what makes it a quadratic, and it produces a parabola, is that the x, or the input, is raised to the second power. So the most simple quadratic function is y equals x squared. Also understand this can be written as f of x equals x squared, and also please understand that y and f of x are outputs. They can be used interchangeably. So there are several parts to a parabola. One of the things is the vertex. The vertex is kind of where the left half and the right half originate from. And then the axis of symmetry. And we'll go down here. The quadratic function is this form right here. Ax squared plus bx plus c. In my example that I just gave you of y equals x squared, right, the a would be 1x squared. And I didn't write the rest because in that one, the bx would be like 0 times x and plus 0 for the c. And I just didn't write all that. It's not necessary to. And it's also not necessary to write the 1. But every quadratic function can be written in that form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And that's called a standard form. So what I want to do with you is I want to talk to you about the parts of this parabola, which is a function, a picture, a graph of a particular quadratic function, right? So we're going to talk about several things. I know I have domain and range listed first, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, we're going to look at the vertex first, because everything really starts from the vertex. The vertex is this spot right here, and more specifically, it's this particular location right here, all right? That would be called the vertex of this parabola. Domain, range, axis of symmetry are all really based on where this vertex is. So I think we'll just start with the vertex. And the vertex is expressed as an ordered pair, right? All right. And so this vertex is to the right 2. So that's a positive 2. But it's down 3. It resides at -3 vertically. So we would say the vertex of this parabola is at 2, -3. Okay. The second thing I'm going to talk to you about is the axis of symmetry. And again, it has everything to do with the vertex, and the axis of symmetry would be this line I just drew right here. The axis of symmetry is at x equals 2. That means it's to the right 2 from the origin of 0, 0. And the axis of symmetry, you can look at it this way. Symmetry means that we split this parabola up into 2 mirror images. The left half and the right half are mirror images of one another. That's the axis of symmetry. Or if this was an actual piece of paper, where would I fold it so that the left half of the parabola would directly overlap the right half of the parabola? I don't want to beat that horse to death, so I'm just going to kind of leave it there. Now we're going to talk about the domain and range. And again, I'm glad that we went with the vertex first. The domain and range have everything to do with starting with the vertex. The domain, it's a way of communicating all the possible inputs into this parabola. What are all the possible inputs? In other words, what are all the x values that we would find on this graph, or what are all the x values that are possible in this particular situation? Well, if you look at the arrows here and here, not only are they going up forever, but they're going to the right and to the left forever, respectively. So that means that as far as my domain, right, all the values from that point to the right are part of my domain, and all the values from that part to the left are part of my domain. So how do we write that? You could say that the domain are all real numbers, but we want to write a domain specific to this particular parabola. And again, it goes back to the vertex. So the domain is larger than or equal to 2, and it's less than or equal to 2. And again, we want to write it that way. So one way to write it is D, larger than or equal to, smaller than or equal to, and it's 2 and 2. Remember that vertex has everything to do with the domain. Secondly, the range is the other direction, output or up and down. What are all the possible outputs or answers to the problem? And we're really talking about height. And where does that start? It starts down here at -3, right? So the parabola bottoms out at -3. So we know that one of the outputs, is -3. And then it just goes up from there in a positive direction. So we want to say the range is bigger than, right, or larger than, and also equal to what point? -3. I want to point out that the range, right, that's why I wanted to talk about the vertex. There's the vertex, 2, -3, and also here is your range. There's the 2 and the 2. And so, Chargers, those are all the aspects of a parabola that you need to be aware of. Thank you.